and welcome to the Everything F1 podcast with Sean and Coops. Good evening, mate. How are we?
I'm doing all right. How are you?
I am good. That was it was an interesting Grand Prix. It wasn't necessarily the one that set the world alight like maybe we thought it was, but there was certainly some drama that we'll definitely need to get into the discussions of in this episode, isn't there? After that sprint weekend.
Yes, and I think most of the drama, for anyone who doesn't know or probably does know, most of it was probably the sprint. Uh, there wasn't 100% really, or much, I should say not 100%, but there wasn't much to really talk about in the Grand Prix in terms of that kind of drama.
Mm.
Uh, but there is certainly connotations after this weekend that we're sure to get into for the remainder of the season.
Yes, there certainly is, and that is one of going to be the main talking point for tonight. We are, of course, Everything F1. Before we get into all that, do check us out on all socials. You'll find us on Facebook, Instagram, X, and Threads at Join EF1, or over on TikTok at EF1 Official. You can also find us on YouTube, Everything F1, all one word, where we are still running our Lego giveaway. All you have to do to be in with a chance to win a Lego Speed Champion set of your choice from the 2024 season of Cars is subscribe. That's it. Head over to YouTube, Everything F1, and hit subscribe. Once we hit 500 subscribers, we'll pick a winner. It's as simple as that. And you'll win yourself a Lego F1 car. They're cute. You can also check out our website, everythingf1.com, for daily news and articles about all motorsports, not just Formula One. We have F1, WEC, F2, F3, IndyCar. Some interesting stories coming out of Formula 2 and IndyCar this week as well, which we might have a quick touch on before we finish up this evening. But let's start off with, because I know how this is going to go. Let's have a bit of a laugh. Coops, let's review our predictions for the US Grand Prix because um, I know these weren't good. I'm predicting these weren't good. If I'm not wrong, we did sprint winner, top three in the race, pole position for the race, and a wild shout. So, hit me with mine first.
Right, so if I can read my writing, you went with George Russell for the sprint win.
Which was not a bad shout.
Yeah, it's not
He
bad.
was one stuck dive bomb away from pulling that one off, I think.
Yeah, you went with Lando for pole,
Yeah, okay.
Lando to win,
Yeah, okay.
George Russell second,
Mm.
Oscar Piastri in third.
I
You
think I might be glad I didn't get that one wrong. I didn't get that one
uh,
right.
you went with Carlos Sainz getting a top six in the Grand Prix.
Oh, he didn't manage, did he?
No, I don't think he did.
No, he did not. No, in fact, he didn't finish at all.
And then I went, and you went with Bortoleto as your rookie. I can't remember where the rookies went. I'm not
Which
100% sure Gabby was that
I'm
good.
not even going to attempt to claim that because Ollie Behrman was eighth as the head of the rookies there. He beat Kimi Antonelli in 13th, Lawson, even though not really rookie, in 11th, Colapinto was 17th, Hunter was 16th, and Bortoleto was 18th. So I actually picked the worst of the rookies there.
Okay, so on to me. Pole position, George Russell. Leclerc was going to win the sprint for me. I went with Max Verstappen, George Russell, Oscar Piastri as my top three. So I get more bragging rights than you because I had Max Verstappen winning the race. So I get that one. This is where it gets wrong because I had Ferraris not getting any points in the Grand Prix.
Well, you got that one quite wrong, actually.
I got that one very wrong
You did
because
indeed.
it was very, very much yin yang sort of, the Force Jedi's against the Empire, because I had Leclerc winning the sprint and then no points to the Grand Prix, and then I had Hadjar as the best rookie. So I'm one place better than you when it comes to that, but yeah, as per usual, we keep to the tradition that is this year that we are totally awful except if you're someone who's not on the panel who managed to get the top three right. So it doesn't count, but the rest of us are pretty poor when it comes to it. And we'll keep it. We'll keep the tradition going, and then we'll see. One of us will accidentally get it right. We'll get something, whether it be the top three, or we'll get something like more than just one thing.
Yeah,
But
we're
yeah,
we're we're the we're the right people to be listening to the opinions of Formula One. So thank you very much for joining us. I hope you stick around. We will do our Mexico Grand Prix predictions a little bit later on. If you're listening on audio platforms, hit subscribe, hit like if you're listening there. We'll do that later in this episode. If you're watching on YouTube, it'll be a following video tomorrow. Now then, now then, let's get into it's almost the only talking point from this race. It's the championship battle. We knew this race was going to be an important one for the championship battle between Oscar Piastri, Lando Norris, and well, now officially Max Verstappen. And this weekend couldn't have gone better for Max Verstappen at all, really, could it?
it was probably the it. Right, I'm going to put this out there. It's a championship winning drive,
Mm,
and he's slowly
love
but
them.
surely doing it. Now, as we all know, I bring the football soccer analogy into this all the time because that's my other sport. Uh, and it's for anyone who does follow soccer ball. Uh, to me, it's that kind of thing where you just watch a team play football and you think that's a championship winning game, or they didn't play particularly well, but they still win it, or they get a goal and then they just manage the other team push back and they win it. Sometimes it's that indescribable thing where you just go, yeah, that's it. And he's just we wrote him off. What was it, 4 Grand Prix ago? He was 100 points behind, and we're like, no, now
104.
104 points behind Piastri. Piastri's still got it there. He's still all he needs to do is keep winning chunks of points, and
Mm.
but it's Max Verstappen. Any other driver, we wouldn't be having this conversation, but because it's Max Verstappen, we are. And is it the if he wins this? Now, bearing in mind, it's probably going to take to the last race of the season. It's
Mhm.
they're at 40 points. They're still getting points. They're not getting as many as they were before McLaren, but they're still doing it. And Piastri's still there or thereabouts. It's probably going to take to the last race of the season. But if you think about it, if he does pull this off, like, is this the best championship winning drive or season for Max Verstappen for any Grand Prix driver because of where he's came from, how he's done it, how dominant the McLarens were? I mean, that's going to be an interesting conversation. I'm sure we'll have to put that out to the followers. But
We
I
certainly
think
will. It will be the biggest overturn of deficit to win the championship ever, beating his own record from 2021. I think he was 68 points behind or something like that, Lewis, wasn't he? Or something insane like that that he overturned. He beat Vettel's record at that. Correct me if I'm wrong on that in the comments. I don't have that open in front of me right now, but I believe I heard something along those lines said over the weekend. I think that's correct. Uh, One way or the other, this would absolutely trounce it to go from 104 points back to win it. He's now only 40 behind with 5 Grand Prix and 2 sprints left. And if you look at the form from last year, and I think it's fair to do so now because McLaren at the end of last year was, I think, the out and out dominant car. Well, they won the Constructors' Championship, so overall it was the best car. They had the two drivers fighting consistently towards the top. They'd come out of the summer. Oscar had won his races. Lando had won a couple of races. They both had a chunk of podiums between them. But interestingly, USA is where it all changed, really. Because, well, Singapore, USA. USA last year, guess where Oscar Piastri finished?
oh no, I don't think it was particularly good, was it?
It was
Or was it
fifth
better?
again. It was fifth last year, like it was this year.
Right, okay.
So
That's interesting.
he doesn't have great. He scored exactly the same amount of points in the US Grand Prix weekend this year as he did last year because obviously he took out Lando in the sprint, and we'll maybe touch on that because that's not up for debate. Mexico eighth, Sao Paulo eighth, Las Vegas seventh, Qatar third, and he won the sprint there, and he was second in the sprint in Brazil, and then Abu Dhabi 10th. Lando's run of form into the final few races. USA fourth, third in the sprint. Mexico second. Cepello sixth, won the sprint and was on pole position. Vegas sixth. Qatar 10th, which was not great, but I believe he had an issue in Qatar. He was second in the sprint and he won in Abu Dhabi. And he was nearly 100 points ahead of Oscar by the end of last year. But Max, third in the USA, won the sprint, sixth Mexico, which he probably. Let's be fair, Lando possibly should have won Mexico last year until Max decided he wanted to put Lando in a wall. We'll talk about that. Cepello, Max won it, which was the champion's drive of last year. He came from, was it 17th or something like that? It was absolutely insane. Vegas he was fifth. Qatari won comfortably, and Abu Dhabi was sixth. So it's even Stevens, but of the three of them, it's Oscar Piastri who has the worst run of form in those races, and they're the same races we're coming into now. Would you be worried if you were Oscar Piastri? I know he said he isn't, but would you be?
If it was me personally, yeah, but I would be. But then I'm not a Formula One driver, and they're kind of different animals. I think he'll be keeping a warm watchful eye on what Red Bull are doing now. I
Mm.
don't think they were before. I think they were kind of keeping it in house and thinking we're kind of dominating, and not in an arrogant way, just in a well, we're fine. Like we don't need
Mm.
to look at anything else. But now you look at Max and how well he's just getting on with it, and because it's Max Verstappen we're talking about, you I think it would be very arrogant of them not to now to keep a maybe not be worried, but just to think, right, I need to keep an eye on this. Oscar's
Mhm.
starting to get a wobble at the wrong time. Arguably, Lando's starting to kind of shear things up, and definitely Max has hit with the wee developments and tweaks to the car and stuff. They've hit the right time to get some kind of pace together, but I don't think he's definitely worried. I think they're keeping an eye on it more than they probably should, more than they were before, and just seeing where they are. And you know, I think one of the first things he'll do when he gets out the car at any time is just to see what Max is doing. What's his pace? Where's that? That'll be questions that probably weren't asked beforehand. Um, if he has another race or two similar to what he's had, and then it gets within like a race one, then I think the worry will step in. Then how are you going to stop it without
Completely
being
agree.
like nefarious and without driving him off the road and doing it as a driver? Because we know that
Mm.
Oscar doesn't get intimidated by Max, but I think he's keeping an eye on it.
I don't think he gets intimidated by Max, but he'd almost be naive to not be worried about Max maybe not worried, but watching Max now at this point. Worried maybe the wrong word. I think he's certainly keep an eye on it. But it is important to say this: Oscar still has a commanding lead over Max Verstappen at the very least. He does not have a commanding lead over Lando Norris anymore. Lando Norris has pulled that gap right back down again. It's now only 14 points behind, which is the way they're going at the moment, two bad weekends for Oscar or another bad sprint where he doesn't take his teammate out this time. And all of a sudden, Lando's going to take the charge. From Max's point of view, Max is 40 points behind Oscar. He's 27 points behind Lando, is he? 306? He's 26 points behind Lando. So he's just more than a clean race win behind Lando. But what that means essentially is that for the final run, even including the sprints, if they're finishing first and if Max wins every single session between now and the end of the season, the two sprints and the five races, he finishes first, and Lando is second. Max will be Lando. Simple as that.
Yep.
And
Yep.
actually, if that's the case, if he's ahead of them, Lando's second, Oscar's third, Max will win the championship. Because he's getting a points difference. If he's finishing first and Oscar is second in every single session, Oscar will win the championship by 5 points. That far. Sorry, by 3 points. Max, if that's the case, if it's a 7 points in the main races and only 1 point in the sprint, 8 points to seven for first and second, Max can't catch Oscar by finishing one place ahead of them, finishing first to Oscar second in every race. So Oscar has that in his pocket. What Oscar does not have in his pocket is form.
No.
Um, it's as simple as that. And I mean, yes, okay, he won. He has won since the summer break, but he has That's kind of it. He doesn't even have a podium since then, if I'm not wrong, since Italy. So he won the Dutch Grand Prix straight after the summer break. Um, after having to, let's be fair, give up the win in Hungary.
Mhm.
We can debate that amongst ourselves at the end of the season if it matters. Italy, he was on the sorry, it was Italy. He had to give up the position. He didn't have to give anything up in Hungary. He was outpaced by Lando doing the undercut, but it was nothing against the team for that one. Italy, he was third. Baku, he smashed himself into the wall twice. Singapore, he was fourth because Lando barged him out of the way, fairly, but barged him out of the way. And then the United States, he was fifth and didn't score a single point in the sprint because he barged Lando out of the way. He barged into Nico Hulkenberg, who then barged both of them out of the way. It's a bad run of form for Oscar Piastri, and if he keeps that up, not only is Lando going to catch him this week if he does something stupid again, Max is going to catch both of them. And I have to say, even as a McLaren fan, if McLaren don't win the Drivers' Championship this year, someone high up needs to get sacked.
Yes, it's
Don't
it would be the biggest fumble in sport, not just Formula One. The biggest
100%.
fumble.
100% it would. And they are, let me get this right, they have 678 points in the constructors to Mercedes 300 and 678 points to Mercedes 341. 678 minus 341. Quick math, live on the podcast. They are 337 points clear in the Constructors' Championship, and they might not win the drivers.
It's just not. It shouldn't happen.
Those
And
two things cannot be in the same sentence.
no, and the worst thing for McLaren is if Max beats Piastri by, or Oscar, sorry, by a couple of points or a handful of points, then we start going back to certain races where they use these papaya rules and fair things, and was it Monza where they swapped him round
Monza with
because he
the
had a slow pit
slow
stop and
pit
stuff.
stop. Yeah.
I think that's something that PR people are probably already having a chat about and how we stop this, because if it's more than that and if Max doesn't do it or it's like by 15, 20 points and there's reliability, you kind of go, well, it wouldn't have made much of a difference. But if Max wins by 2 or 3 points, oh, there's going to be concerns. And I think even Oscar's camp will be having some stern words by, Zach and Stella and the rest of the team
Hmm.
that, you some if you look back on it, and maybe the hindsight's kicking in a bit early for me, but if you look back on it, could you argue there was an element of complacency with McLaren if they lose it by only a few points and they go, well, we did that to be fair. You did that because you didn't think Max was going to get close to you. That's why you did it. Because if you thought it was going to be close, you're putting your egg on somebody's basket and going, right, we're not going to do it out and out 1-2 like Ferrari, Schumacher, Barrichello, but we're going to, if you're in front, you're staying in front, regardless.
It's one thing to say that McLaren were maybe a bit complacent, arrogant, maybe is a little bit harsh, but safe, and they just wanted to make sure that one of them won and that they weren't doing it by like Senna-ing each other off the road at every corner. But they weren't the only ones. Nobody expected Max to make this comeback. No one in history has ever made a comeback. Okay, had made a comeback. He hasn't made the bloody comeback yet, but he's making a good go of it. He still has plenty of time left, but Max had his gaffes in this run in last year as well. Obviously, Mexico being a huge glaring blip on Max Verstappen's um, report card because he was awful. Lando beat him. Lando forced his way past. Max got a bit thick. Max ran him off the track. Lando got back ahead. He didn't have to give the position back because Max ran him off the track. And then Max nearly ran him into the wall deliberately and only got a 10. He got two 10-second penalties for it. She should have got a lot more for, in my opinion.
Yeah.
Um, I've heard people say, "Oh, it's only Max. You wouldn't have said that about Senna." Yes, I would, and I do all the time. I was not a Senna fan. I'm not old enough to be a Senna fan, but I'm not a Senna fan, and no amount of rose-colored glasses because he died in '94 will ever change that. I was not a fan of how Senna went racing. The Monaco lap in '94 aside, I wasn't a fan of Senna's. I prefer Prost. Um, but that was a huge blip on Max's radar last year, and even still, he was two places ahead of Oscar after 20 seconds of penalties.
Yeah. It's
You
just
know, it's
Max. It's just Red Bull, and they're actually being very anti-Red Bull, and I don't know if this is the Lauren Mackey's thing, but they're not being very bullish. They're being very much introverted in a sense of they're just quietly going about their stuff. They're not being out there and shouting and bawling. And Red Bull, especially when they became a force and were up the front, they let people know they were there. They let people know in press
I think
conferences.
quiet is the right way to put that. They have been quiet in a good way. It's about bloody time. They've been
Yep.
too damn loud. There's been too much around. They have been quiet, and what they have quietly done in the past couple of months is upgraded the ever-loving hell out of that car. Now, that is going to hurt them badly next year, and they don't care. And rightly
No.
so, they don't care. They shouldn't care. It was the same in 2014. They didn't give a damn about the rules change because they knew Mercedes had already stolen a march on them. They wanted to go out of the rules on a high, and they put all of their eggs into the Vettel basket, and it worked. He won the last 9 races in a row, which is insane. And they've done the exact same thing again with the calmer, quieter leadership of Laura Matthews, because if they can go out with Max Verstappen's fifth title, he outscores Vettel. He's their best driver in history. He becomes one of the top 4 drivers in history. Who else has 5 titles? Fangio?
Yes, I think so. I'd
Fangio is
need to
it,
look
isn't it?
up. I think so.
Fangio on 5, and then Schumacher and Hamilton on 7. So he becomes the third best driver in history. Nobody will
Yep.
care that they didn't win the Constructors' Championship 2 years in a row. No one cares about the Constructors' Championship. I was delighted McLaren won it last year because they hadn't won it for the entire time I've been a McLaren fan. But I don't care that they won it this year. Do you?
No, no, that's as well. No, the constructors is the money making part. That's for the corporations to get their money and stuff,
Yeah.
and the fan. The kind of I'm generalizing, but the general F1 fan, it's the drivers' championship because that's
Yeah.
all that's discussed. Even when the constructors, right, it's still right. They've won it. So the drivers' championship is the championship that everybody wants, everyone is cares about, and everyone wants to see happen, and wants a battle for. Like most people aren't interested in Max Verstappen winning it in a canter by 12 races before the end. Like nobody does. The Michael Schumacher era was the time that I never paid as much attention to Formula One because
Same.
they just won everything, and you knew that. And there wasn't a lot going on behind Michael Schumacher. Thing that the field was a lot more spread apart. Uh, and the fact that Formula One has a drivers' individual championship along with a team championship, and the team championship has to be won with 2 individuals working together, even though they should be working against each other. It's such an oxymoron in terms of how that works uh, on track, and and they trip each other up all the time when it comes to that sort of thing. But yeah, the drivers' championship is what fans want to discuss. The
Mhm.
drivers' championship is a thing that is on the table. This year's constructors was done by half the season. A couple of races in, we knew McLaren were winning it. Nobody else was close
Yeah.
enough. Uh, so the drivers' championship is the discussion point, and that's
So with that in mind, right? With 5 races to go. Mexico, Brazil, Vegas, Qatar, Abu Dhabi, with sprints in, if I'm not wrong, Brazil and Qatar. So, with that said, got a month and a half, which is upsetting. If you were to put £5, €5, right now, this second, who is the 2025 Formula One World Champion?
Max Verstappen.
I had a feeling you were going to say that. um, my fiver is going on Lando Norris. And
Oh.
I'll have no bias. I'm wearing a Red Bull shirt today. No bias. On form, obviously Max, he's incredible, but Max Red Bull, the team, there's a lot going on that they're not going to be perfect between now and the end of the season. I don't think all the tracks suit them. Mexico should, but it did not last year. And as is always the case, someone else is going to get involved. And we'll
Yeah.
talk about them in a few minutes, but Ferrari were incredible here last year. Out of nowhere, They won America. They won USA. Charles won USA, and then Carlos won Mexico, which, sorry, Ferrari fans, is still Ferrari's last win in Formula One. You're welcome. Um, but I think something has to happen to Max. It's too perfect.
Hmm.
Something's going to go wrong. And look at the results since Canada, where he fecked up royally. And Lando, this is now, not Max. Lando's run of form since then has been incredible. After Canada, a lot of people said, that's it. There's no way he's winning the championship. He doesn't have it. He doesn't have the bottle. He doesn't have the skill. Blah, 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 blah. Oscar's going to win it. He's a robot. He's going to run away with it. Since then, Oscar has 2 wins and 6 podiums. Lando has three wins and 7 podiums. And as of the USA Grand Prix, is the McLaren driver with the most podiums in a single season ever. Not the most impressive stat, considering there's more races now than there
Mm.
was in like most of Formula One history up to this point. So it's not the most impressive stat of all time, but it is a record. Lando Norris, he beat Oscar Piastri too. I think that's the more impressive thing, because don't think a lot of people, if you were going to say who's going to break that record this year, after maybe after Australia, but after China, I don't think a lot of people would have said that. Um, I think Lando looks as cool as a cucumber. He's after I think Baku was a realization for him that he should have capitalized more on how bad Oscar was that weekend. It was an awful,
Mm.
awful weekend for Oscar, arguably his worst weekend in Formula One. Because it was just on him. It was just his mistakes, his errors. Lando has been cool as a cucumber. He's finally got a bit of fighting talk on. Should he have got past Charles Leclerc sooner in USA? Yes, but is that maybe more of a testament to Charles's driving? Also, yes. And I think Lando's going to enjoy these last few races. And here's one final thing for you. This weekend in Mexico, Lando and Max, I believe, are giving up their seats for FP1, as is mandatory. And it is their last one of the year. Oscar Piastri has one more.
Yeah, I think the rumor is it's the last race of the season.
Yeah, it'll be it almost has to be the last race. It can't be this weekend because Lando's already doing it this weekend. It won't be Sao Paulo or Qatar because they're sprints.
Mm.
And it won't be Vegas because I just don't think it'll be Vegas. Just as simple as that. It's if McLaren are smart and being fair, it should be Vegas, but it's a street track, and you can almost guarantee a rookie's going to absolutely stuff it on a street track compared to Abu Dhabi, when there's a million miles of desert runoff at every corner. It's going to be in Abu Dhabi, and this championship, unless Max and Lando and Oscar crash each other out for the next 3 weeks, this championship is going down to the final race. And Oscar Piastri is going into the final race where he did not do particularly well last year with an hour less practice. That's going to play on his mind from this weekend.
It will only be an issue if he form continues to be a problem. See if he comes out and Mexico wins it. I think we're starting to not talk about Max.
Fair point. Fair point. This weekend is important. If Oscar wins this weekend, different story. If Lando wins this weekend, even more different story. If Max
Mhm.
wins this weekend, same story.
Yep, but it's
No
going
matter
to be
what the rest of the results are.
this. Yep, same conversation. I think the only time that Oscar could probably be a wee bit okay is if he's second and Max is first, because it's
Yes,
not
because again,
quite the same damage.
in that scenario, that could happen for every single competitive session for the rest of the season, and Oscar will be the champion by 3 points. I think. If I
Yep,
do my maths right.
it's something like that. Because before Singapore, Max had to win everything.
Hmm.
If Max won everything, it didn't matter what McLaren did, he would come out. But obviously, didn't win in Singapore, so
Mm.
that changes the narrative. And he basically needed McLaren to do a bit of shenanigans, which they did in the sprint, and then Oscar didn't quite fire up in the race, which is
Mm.
kind of what he needs. He needs to really get back into it. He needs Piastri to get nothing, and then we've got an issue. Probably the Grand Prix, not more so the sprint. But yeah, if Oscar just gets into his head and keeps going with, I know he wants to win, but more like Alain Prost professor type,
Hmm.
and think, if I just keep banking points, as long as it's a decent amount, not 1 and 2 and 3, obviously, but you're talking second, thirds to the
Yeah,
rest of the
Rosberg.
season, you've won the championship.
Mm.
And that's all. That's kind of what he needs to think about. He kind of needs to think, do I dive down here and lose a wing and then maybe not get any points and Max disappears with it? Or do I take my time, keep myself in second, just keep Max near me?
Mm.
Then he's done it. So,
Which, to bring it to Lando, is an argument that I saw as to why it took him so damn long to get past Charles, because the argument that Lando hasn't confirmed this at all, and he never will, one way or the other. But the suggestion was that even if Lando had stayed ahead of Charles at turn one, he probably wouldn't have passed. He had exactly one chance. George Russell actually was quoted this weekend to say Formula One has become a lap one, turn one championship, and he's not wrong.
no,
If
he's
you
not.
don't, if you don't get past in lap, if, at least for the win, if you don't get past in turn one of lap one, you're not going to win the race. If you get through lap one ahead, you're going to win the race. He's probably right, and I think Max had plenty in the bank. Yes, Lando turned the burners on at the end to cover a 5 second penalty that might have come for track limits, which he did, and he had incredible pace. But Max spent 50 laps managing his tires. Max had more than enough in the tank to fight him off if he had to. I don't think Lando would have won that race, and I don't think Lando thinks he would have won that race any unless he got past it at lap one. Um, and getting past Charles, I think he knew he could. He knew he would. He had the faster car, he had the better car, and everyone's like, "Oh, send a dive bomb, send a dive bomb." He doesn't need to. He knew he
No.
had the tire offset against Charles for the whole race, literally from lap one. Literally from lap one, even if the tires didn't degrade as bad as Pirelli thought they would again. Um, he knew he had the pace to get past Charles, and he was just patient because he knew I need to be second in this race. That's the damage limitation. It's the best possible result. And I know because I can't see him in my wing mirror that Oscar is far enough back that I need those extra 3 points for second place. And he did it.
Yep.
So it's a story that is going to continue to rumble on. Again, this weekend in Mexico, which we'll get onto very soon, is going to be an even more telling one than USA was. USA really set the scene for the run into Abu Dhabi, but Mexico is important because all three drivers did not do well there last year for various reasons. Let's get on then to one big moment each, because let's be honest, there wasn't too much to talk about in this race beyond Charles versus Lando, that was it. Max vanished out in front. Was having fun. Charles and Lewis, just to touch on them, good result. Really, really, really good result for Ferrari. Awful in practice, awful in the sprint. All of a sudden, oh, hey, podium, fourth. Great. Even Lewis was like, don't know where that came from, but that was a great weekend. Really, really happy with that. Good result for the team. He held off Oscar at the end with potentially a delaminating tire. Um, Good result for Lewis. Good result for Charles. But one big moment each. What I would like to talk about is Yuki Tsunoda and Ollie Behrman,
Okay.
because Ollie Behrman was quicker on fresher tires, and they were coming into the fiddly little section towards the end of the track. There's a left hander, weird section. It's a bitch to drive in the F1 game. Don't know how they do it in real life, but it is a good overtaking spot. And before he got to the corner, Yuki Tsunoda turned left under braking, braked about 100 meters before the actual bloody corner, and sent Ollie into the grass. And somehow, Ollie got the blame for that, and Yuki didn't get anything. There wasn't even an investigation. Did you see that? Do you agree, or do you think that was just Yuki closing the door?
Ooh. So initially when I watched it, I thought it was Behrman just, you know, just being a wee bit too aggressive. When you looked back on it, it took a couple of replays. I went, oh, Yuki turned a wee bit. Probably shouldn't have done that because he turned very much on the apex of the corner,
Hmm.
which you're not supposed to do. Like turn in, not turn as you're supposed to turn, but it was a wee bit kind of, oh, Behrman's coming, better turn over. And it's one of those ones where if there's contact, it's a mess.
Mm.
There's wheels and carbon fiber going all over the place. Uh, so, uh, yeah, I can see why they didn't, because it took me a couple to look at and go, did he? Did he not? Maybe you could say it was smart on Yuki because the way he braked for the corner and the way he turned it made Behrman look like he was a wee bit more out of control than he probably was,
Mm.
which made the stewards think, actually, that's probably more on Behrman because he was kind of really going for a dive bomb down the inside. He's had to take avoiding action, so we're going to put that on him. So I can see that, but if Yuki did do what some people have thought they've seen, it's a wee bit cheeky and probably should have deserved something.
Yeah, I thought it was very because even if you look at the track, if you've never even watched Formula One before, but you'd watched even 3 laps of that race, nobody brakes on the apex of turn 15. They come out of 14, they accelerate. 15 is nothing. 15 is the breaking point for 16. So you brake after 15 on an arc into 16. Yuki braked on turn 15, which isn't a turn, on the apex of 15. Nobody does that ever. He slammed on the brakes and turned into Ollie. I'm not surprised Ollie went through the grass, and I'm just impressed that Ollie finished the race. But if you disagree, let me know, and I'd like you to show me some proof that he didn't brake test him because that's just how it looked to me. I'm not seeing that any other way other than he brake tested him on that corner, and he is a lucky boy to get away with that because he scored good points to Yuki Tsunoda at last. That penalty would have probably knocked him at the very best down to 10th, and he wouldn't have got such a good haul of points. That's my moment I wanted to chat on. Coops, what is your big moment from the weekend that you think deserves a bit of a highlight?
See, there wasn't too many, but I think my big moment is probably Zach Brown's reaction to the sprint debacle.
Mm.
And the reason I say this is it probably is a poster boy. He's a poster boy at that moment for why you shouldn't speak when your emotions are running a bit high. Because,
And why is this?
well, so as we know, there was a bit of a coming together, shall we say, between the two McLarens, which involved a couple of cars, I think one other in particular. And the Sky Pad, or the Sky broadcast decided, in the UK at least, I don't know if it's the same elsewhere, I think it is, they went straight down to Zach Brown, who used the term amateur hour driving. And that was towards Hulkenberg. Because from what he's seen, which, by the way, is the same pictures we see, he thought that Hulkenberg came up the inside, poleaxed Piastri, who ended up hitting Norris, split and then ruined the races. Everyone else in the world could see that it was not that. It was Piastri that hit Hulkenberg that bounced him into Norris, but it wasn't done in a, it sounds bad when you say it like that. It was just Piastri trying to, change direction to see if he can get a run on his teammate. It's first lap. There's cars everywhere. It's, rear wheel, front wheel. It's one of those things. So yes, Zach Brown, who's not exactly flavour of the month with people unless you're McLaren fans, and actually, to be honest, I don't think many McLaren fans particularly like him. I think he's very much a Marmite character. Then reacted in that way, and he's had to come out. I think it was the next day before race. There's pictures of him shaking the hand with Nico. He came out and said, "Yeah, sorry, my bad. I saw the replay now. Probably shouldn't have said that." And maybe he needs to go back and look at like what Arsene Wenger did when he was the manager of Arsenal back in the Invincible years, when there was a controversial moment. They shoved a mic in his face at the end of the match and went, "What do you think of that?" And he always turned around and said, "Never seen it. From where I was, I never seen it. It could have happened at his feet, but never seen it," because he didn't want to get himself in that, get caught in the emotion of it all. He wanted to be kind of analytical, go away and look at it. And that's maybe what he should have done. Maybe he should have waited for the replays, maybe got one of his team to say, "Could you get me the iPad with a replay of that?" and look at it a couple of times. And then, when Skypad are ready to, or the Sky broadcast are ready to chat, have a conversation. He's just made himself a wee bit more stupid than he should be in that circumstance.
Yep, I think that's a good one to put up. And as you said at the start, the not speaking before you think, because even to their credit, the Matt and Tommy on P1, their immediate reaction to it was that Hulkenberg was completely at fault and that he bowling balled into Oscar. Which, in fairness, if you're only looking at it once and you're at the track, completely understandable. I thought from the second I saw it that Oscar turned in way too bloody tight there, and that's exactly what happened. But to their credit, the lads, Matt and Tommy, they looked back and when they actually did their full race review, they completely changed their tone and said, nope, that was Oscar's fault.
Mhm.
And I haven't heard Zach recount his stupid statement yet, have you?
I think I haven't seen it, like actually heard it, but there was one of the other, I don't know which one it was. It was another kind of F1 media thing on the socials actually quoted them with, like, they had both side by side amateur driving, and then they said something about, I can't remember exactly what the quote is, but I think he kind of distanced himself from the previous quotes. So
Hmm.
he's clearly looked at it again. All the PR people have went, mate, you need to watch that. That's not what you've said it is. But again, yeah, the emotion of it all, like, we're allowed to do it because we're fans and we're emotionally invested in it. But these guys on the pit wall, these kind of words can be a bit controversial and can follow you along. And and in all honesty, these guys should really know better. The drivers,
Hmm.
I have no issue with the drivers when something happens and then the first thing they do when they come out of the car, when somebody's dived down the inside and ruined their race and whatever else, and then they've got to go and do their media duties, then yes, you're going to get the emotional reactions and you're going to get either the downbeat Hamilton or the angry Max Verstappen. uh, that's fine. But people
Hmm.
like the people on the pit wall should really take their time to kind of look at things a wee bit more, because, I know they're emotionally invested, but they have that opportunity to be a wee bit more analytical and probably should. It makes good conversation for us. So on one hand, I really don't want it to change, but it does make them look stupid when they get it wrong. And Zach wasn't even close to getting it right. So
Yep. I agree. I think that's one for the PR nuts to crack this weekend to make sure that he doesn't maybe speak before he has reviewed everything, or at the very least, corrects himself a bit better. Before we get on to our Mexico preview, I want to look at a couple of questions or opinions that have come in on the socials in the lead up to this episode revolving around the Grand Prix. Um, from Stewart Spotlight, was the crash between Sainz and Antonelli Sainz's fault or Antonelli's fault, and why did the stewards wait till after the race? I think that second part is a good question. It was on like lap nine. There was 9/10 of the damn race to go, and they thought, "Do you know what? We're too busy."
yes, I don't know. I mean, when it comes to stewards and after the race, I think majority of the time they want to speak to the drivers. Don't really know what you wanted to speak to the driver for in that case. It was pretty clear what happened.
Mm,
So yeah, sometimes you want it to be quick, but do you want it to be too quick where they make the wrong decision? But I think they had plenty of time to have a think about it. But then we're fickle Formula One fans, because they could have looked 20 laps to look over everything and then decided he gets a penalty, and then we'd be like, why did it take 20 laps?
mm.
Should have been done in five. So, I think the stewards, like, we're win some, lose some, can do right for wrong sometimes. So I'm not overly bothered, but it was a bit of a strange one why they decided to do that, because I don't see what you were going to get from the drivers and I don't think anything really came of it. There's nothing that I've seen on any of the socials or say that they got reprimanded or any kind of follow up issue. So it was all for a bit of nothing, in all honesty. Which is
Yep.
me.
Fair enough. Another one in from Ted. Thank you, Ted. With the Constructors' Championship wrapped up and the front running teams all having incidents or compromised weekends, do you think the battle for third in the Constructors' Championship is opening up? And that is a really, really interesting question because McLaren are gone, but Mercedes sits second on 341 points after not a great weekend. Ferrari did have a good weekend eventually, and now are on 334 points in third, but only three behind them is Red Bull, which pretty much means only three behind them is Max Verstappen because he's on 306 points on his own. As an interesting one, I think, because, well, it's not necessarily the battle for third, it's the battle for second. Is Max not only going to collect the fifth drivers? Is he going to recover to second in the constructors, or are Mercedes going to do something, or can Ferrari salvage something? It's an interesting fight now. I think that in that kind of upper midfield of the table.
It's getting a lot closer, and I think this is just epitomising and highlighting how good Red Bull have been in this part of the season.
Mm.
Because this isn't a conversation we'd be having 3 races ago, and we're now
Nope.
having it now. And how good Max has been, and how quietly they've gone about their business. That's Red Bull. Uh, I think it'll be close. I think with how well George is going and just general consistency over the course of the season, I think George will probably do enough to keep it. I think is it Mercedes or second? Did you say?
Mercedes are second, yeah, on
I
three
think
point
I
one.
think I think they will. I think Red Bull will probably get third. I think that's not the 3 points is nothing to Max. I
No.
think the way that they're scoring points compared to how Ferrari are scoring points at the minute, um, I don't see that being a problem for Max and Red Bull. But I think Mercedes, especially George, I think they'll probably retain second. But hey, it's Max. If Indy can do it, he's going to do it. Uh, just to caveat the whole thing we're talking about Max, I don't think he's going to win the championship. I just really would like to, just to kind of have the conversation about, is this the best drive ever? And rules are there to be records are there to be broken, and it'd be nice to see Max. We sat through Lewis chipping away at every record under the sun. It'd be nice to see Max get something, and that's a good record. I don't think if that happens and he pulls it off, I don't think it's probably going to happen for a long time again.
Mm.
Um,
Yep, that's yep, agree. One final one then. Big shout out. This is from Rachel. Big shout out to Williams getting a podium in the sprint with Carlos Sainz was huge. Do you think this is a genuine sign that they are returning to the fight, or was it mostly just luck being in the right place after the McLaren crash? It's an interesting one because they had a mixed weekend in Williams. That podium was incredible, sprint or no. And where Alex Albon had a bit of a rubbish US Grand Prix, and then so did Carlos getting crashed out so early. Where did Alex finish the Grand Prix? He finished in 14th. So he missed out on points as well. And Carlos, I think, got punted out too soon. I don't think either of them was going to fight for points for the race. So I minded to say it's right place, right time. But Carlos definitely seems more comfortable in the car in the second half of the season than he did in the first half of the season. What do you make of Williams?
they're quietly going about it. I think it's a bit of both for the sprint podium because with the teams outside of your Ferrari, Red Bull, or Max, Mercedes, McLaren, it is going to be a bit of luck. There's going to have to be something for you to be up there fighting for, the occasional podium. And
Hmm.
to fight for that, you have to be in the right place at the right time. So I think it's a bit of both. I think Williams are quietly getting a bit better, and they're clearly got something in it. They've got a decent car. It's not the best car at times, uh, but it's not an absolute tractor like we've seen for Williams in the past. So you know, yeah, I think it's. I don't think it's. I don't think they're there yet, but they're certainly building a good foundation to get there.
Mm.
And I think the sprint podium was a combination of a decent car under the conditions because I don't think there. I think Carlos was relatively fast all weekend. Uh, so, so he had a bit of pace in it, but there was also right place, right time. Because you know what,
Mm.
you got to take your luck, you got to take your biscuits when you get them, and that is one of them. Because he could have got caught up in that and could have ran over some carbon fiber and then ended up in there. Could have took an end plate off, but he didn't, and he got third, and you know, more power to him. And
Mm.
that's what you kind of need at the minute when you're kind of rebuilding and transition. You need those kind of wee moments just to help you out, get that bit of confidence in the team, and then build it for the next year. Maybe next year they'll be amazing.
Mm.
Nobody knows.
We can certainly hope so. It'd be great. McLaren have done their recovery. I think Ferrari need to maybe do theirs because, as I mentioned, there are now adults walking around. Oh, I don't know if I mentioned this. I saw it today. There are now adults among us who have never seen a Ferrari World Drivers' Champion in their life. Sorry,
Wow.
so long ago since Kimi Raikkonen won in 2007. As of yesterday, October 21st, 2007, yesterday as we record, October 21st, 2007 was when he won the championship in 2007. There was the Constructors in 08, but there are now legal adults who were not alive the last time Ferrari won a Drivers' Championship. There we go. Just gonna let
Just
that one
makes me
linger.
feel old, but thanks.
Yeah, so I'm just going to let that one linger. But again, I'm not biased Ferrari fans. If you're watching on YouTube, I'm still here in my background at Monza with all my Ferrari gear on. Just saying that must suck. Thank you very much, everybody, for your questions. If you'd like to get involved with next week's podcast, send us your questions on whatever post we put up on social medias. We check them all. Anything to do with the podcast or anything to do with the race, stick your comments in there and we will do our best to get to some of them or leave them on the YouTube videos as well and we'll check them there. That'll do it for our review of the USA Grand Prix.